Don't you think men really like intelligence more when it comes right down to it?
Please. Are we going to go back to that? Are you kidding?
Sure. I mean, a brain, a caring
no man
person.
has ever put his hand up a woman's dress looking for a library card.
Good morning, it's Friday, Fight Song Friday, January the 2nd, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and the collapse of parenting. All that and more when I come back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Now, Varney and Company.
I will see you there. Varney and Company up now. Ashley Webster is in for Stewart. Ashley, good morning.
Very good. Good morning, Cheryl. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ashley Webster, in today for Stuart Varney. Stuart, by the way, will be back on Monday, well-rested and raring to go. Zohran Mamdani has been inaugurated as New York City's 112th mayor. During his speech, he promised to govern as a democratic socialist. Meanwhile, more from the Minnesota fraud scandal. The Small Business Administration has suspended 6,900 Minnesota borrowers over a suspected $400 million pandemic loan fraud. Oh, my. Now, the Washington Post editorial board is calling for stricter SNAP qualifications across the U.S. as the Minnesota fraud scandal continues to unravel. All right, let's take a look at the futures on the very first trading day of 2026. Green across the screen. What a way to start. The Dow up 158 points, up 0.33%. S&P up 0.5%. The NASDAQ up nearly 1%. Not too shabby. Let's take a look at the 10-year Treasury yield. That has been moving exactly nowhere, unchanged at 4.17%. Let's take a look at the 2-year yield, 3.48%, barely higher. Meanwhile, Bitcoin threatening to hit the $90,000 mark again. It is up $933 at 89,291. And take a look at oil, continuing to move lower. Oil was down to $56, less than $57, down 55 cents at 56.87. By the way, a gallon of regular across the country holding steady at $2.83. Some states much lower than that. All right, on the show today, after a public feud with Donald Trump and pledging to start a new political party, Elon Musk is now signaling support for Republicans in November. Another surprising stance from the Washington Post editorial board. It is warning California of the problems ahead if a billionaire tax is approved. They could get the heck out. Meantime, protests continuing in Iran, and President Trump is threatening intervention if Tehran kills peaceful protesters. And multiple states have now banned junk food for food stamp purchases. So much to talk about today. It is Friday, January the 2nd, 2026.
And that was Nonprofit News Now. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little motivation.
Sweat equity. Sweat equity. There's some things you're not willing to quit when you've invested that much into it. Some of y'all, you can quit because you ain't putting nothing in it. You ain't put enough work in it. You can just turn your back on it because you didn't put that much work into it. There's some stuff in my life I can't turn my back on it. I work too hard to walk away from certain things because I put too much in it. And some of you can easily walk away from stuff. It doesn't mean nothing to you. If this company means something to you, if this opportunity means something to you, you wouldn't quit and you wouldn't give up and you wouldn't give in.
It's called character. You will grow through what you go through. The question is, are you willing to go through it? Sometimes a setback and you being in the dumps and miserable and frustrated about all of these things that keep going wrong and wrong and wrong and wrong, and you're looking for something to go right. When it finally starts going right, you're going to appreciate it that much more.
You cry, you're hurt. At the end of the crying and the hurt, don't give me a story. I don't need a story. At the end of it, I need you to get a reward. You already cried. You've already sacrificed parties. You've already given up sports. You've already given up a whole lot of stuff. And now you're about to cry and give up. You're about to cry and go home. If you were going to quit, you should have quit before you started. You don't come this far. You don't invest this much time. You don't invest this much energy together. Recycle your pain. You can decide the shape, the form. You can decide the product that comes from your pain. Get something from it. You're already in pain. Use it. Do something with it. Allow it to take you to the next level. Allow your pain to push you to greatness. This is what I need you to do for me. When you walk out of here, I just need you to keep walking toward it. I don't need you thinking about it no more. You're doing too much thinking. You analyze it too much. You're talking yourself out of it. I don't know if this is going to work. I tried and it didn't work. I just need you to keep moving. I need you to make up in your mind that the only way you can lose is if you quit. I just need you to keep going. When you out there dealing with the real world, it ain't pretty. You got to have heart. Get some heart. It can be fixed and you can fix it. But when you pointing fingers and you talking about, I can't believe stuff change. The weather change every day. You don't complain about that. When you get out there, I need you kill or be killed when you get out there. We ain't playing no more. We ain't taking no prisoners no more. When you get out there, whatever you can get, go get it. Because they gonna get it before you get it. And they ain't gonna give it to you. So you go out there and get what's yours. Ain't nobody about to give you your personal freedom. If you're going to get your personal freedom, they ain't giving it away. You gotta go get it. You gotta go earn it. That test might not go away. That pain might not go away. That fight might not go away. You are a warrior. It's time for you not to back up, not to give up, not to give in. You are a warrior. It's time to fight. If you're going through trials and tribulations, the best thing you can do is handle it. The worst thing you can do is panic. If you ever study an eagle, you see that an eagle flies best when there's storms and winds, because it doesn't have to flap. It uses the wind from the storm to elevate. And so I don't care what your trials and tribulations are, elevate yourself. Get beyond the clouds.
Don't worry about your haters. Your haters are like pigeons. Pigeons can only fly so high.
And so you don't have to worry about people and circumstances and situations. You just fly up to an altitude that they can't go to. You are in control. Not the little voice that gives you all the doubts, and gives you all the negativity, and gives you all the questions. You, the successful you, are in control. And you've got to continually beat that into your brain. Every time that little negative voice comes around that makes you feel insecure, that makes you feel less confident, that makes you feel like you're not enough, stop being a victim. Stop letting life push you around and start fighting back. Because the minute you tell yourself that you control this is the minute you can start to change it. It all starts the moment you take responsibility and say to yourself, I can make out of this life what the f*** I want. And no one and nothing is going to shape my destiny but me. You've got to stare all that shit in the face and say, you can't beat me. I'm too strong.
Many start, but few finish. And that few that finish, that just keep on there in spite of the pain, in spite of the agony. They just keep on. And once they break through that wall, now it's just automatic. It's not a question of whether or not you will do it. It's done. Where you start worrying, where you begin to trust, you get still and begin to know that you are entitled to this. You're supposed to have this. This is your calling.
And that's a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little meditation. And that's a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now from, let's see, it's Maria Bartiromo's show.
It is my worldview that we really shouldn't be, as government, in the business of buying groceries on the shelves.
But city leaders here...
Okay, so my worldview, it doesn't say who that guy was, but and this is from a piece about government-run grocery stores. There's a new government-run grocery store in Atlanta. Now, he says, my worldview. We know he's a liberal because of the way he phrased that. My worldview, instead of saying things as a statement of fact, a statement of reality. The fact is that the government isn't in the grocery store business. Businesses are in that business. The other thing with this piece is that they said that this was started with grants, taxpayer money, loans. Who loaned them the money to do this? They didn't go into that. But if banks loan them the money to start this grocery store and governments are regulating the banks, that's a huge conflict of interest. And so these grocery stores should go away just on that basis alone. Back in a minute. Thank you. Here's a little bit more from Maria Bartiromo.
It is my worldview that we really shouldn't be, as government, in the business of buying groceries on the shelves.
But city leaders here say access to food isn't just about groceries.
I believe that food is a human need, it's a necessity on Maslow's hierarchy of need. We're trying to give people food access so they can be productive citizens and they have a great quality of life.
Nearby private grocery.
Okay, so I'm wondering how much of this is done this way. This is what the left likes to do, the liberals like to do, is they want to paper over their cockroach nests. They create a problem, and then they just paper over it with some kind of a government program. So I'm wondering how much of this has to do with the fact that in Atlanta, the government in Atlanta, with its soft on crime attitude, has chased businesses out, created a vacuum that they're now trying to paper over with these government stores.
This will now have to compete to keep customers and prices in check.
Whether there is a taxpayer money or not, competition is good.
Atlanta leaders hope this model, publicly funded, privately operated, can work here and be replicated elsewhere.
Okay, so it says publicly operated, privately funded. When you combine the government and businesses, that's called fascism. Look it up.
The goal of taxpayers being repaid as the store grows. Incoming New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani campaigned on city-run grocery stores, and already members of his team have talked with Atlanta operators about their approach. A hybrid approach that ultimately could provide an oasis in the food desert.
And that was Ashley Webster from the Maria Bartiromo Show. Back in a minute. And I also wanted to mention about these grocery stores, what they failed to say and what I failed to pick up at, when I was analyzing this was government. They say government stores. What they should be saying is liberal stores, because no conservative would ever come up with this idea. No conservative mayor, governor, president would ever have a government store. Back in a minute. Thank you. So there's an article in the American Thinker, the very revolutionary United States Constitution. I'm going to read just one paragraph of this. For the first time in history, a government was formed by a written constitution that described rights that were inherent from God, upon which the government could not impede. What's more, the entire thing was created for the specific purpose of limiting the power of government. This was made clear by the Bill of Rights, which, beginning with Massachusetts, became the quid pro quo for getting the Constitution ratified. And in case anyone missed the point, the last of the 10 amendments that make up the Bill of Rights states, quote, "The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people," unquote. Again, I say at the end of every podcast, remember that the government has no rights. And that's where, what I just read, it's stated explicitly in the Constitution. It reads, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution. Powers not delegated. It doesn't say rights. Okay? So, remember, the government has no rights, but it acts as if it does. Thank you. So this is another article in the American Thinker. Good riddance to Marjorie Taylor Greene's swamp creature populism. And I'm only going to read a few paragraphs of it. to make my point here. Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Republican from Georgia, did not leave Washington as a martyr to principle. She left as a case study in how rank opportunism masquerades as populism and how loudly proclaimed integrity can coexist with some of the most cynical behavior the D.C. swamp has to offer. Greene entered Congress in January 2021, branding herself as a sworn enemy of the political class, promising to drain the swamp and to stand shoulder to shoulder with working Americans. 5 years later, she timed her exit to meet the minimum service threshold for securing a taxpayer-funded congressional pension. That benefit was locked in by dating her resignation to January 5th, 2026, 3 days after completing exactly 5 years in office. After federal retirement rules, that service guarantees her a deferred annuity beginning at age 62, estimated at roughly $8,700 annually. It was a beneficial exit, not a sacrificial one. I've always criticized Marjorie Taylor Greene for being one of the so-called conservatives that insists on putting a kick me sign on her back. She's one of the many conservatives that think in order to be a conservative, they must have a kick me sign on their back. Well, she did. She spent her, what will be soon, 5 years in Congress putting a kick me sign on her back and getting kicked and kicked and kicked, and finally kicked out of Congress. This is what happens when you make yourself a lightning rod. You don't have to do that in order to be a conservative. Remember, conservatism is a cause. It's not a movement. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, the collapse of parenting.
Conclusion. You and I are not the only ones trying to raise kids right in a culture which is likely to steer them wrong. I have met like-minded parents across the United States and around the world. Together, you and I and other parents like us can create a community of parents who understand the challenges, parents who are trying to build a culture of respect that works in the 21st century. We need to reevaluate our values. As recently as 40 years ago, our popular culture celebrated the lives of ordinary people in television shows like The Cosby Show and Family Ties. The characters depicted in those shows were not famous or wealthy, but they were good role models for children because the characters depicted in those shows were good people. Today, popular American culture, especially the culture of children and teenagers, revolves around famous influencers on TikTok and Instagram and celebrity entertainers like Drake, Taylor Swift, and Cardi B. As journalist Alina Tugend has observed, we parents end up convinced that being average will doom our children to a life that will fall far short of what we want for them. The very word ordinary has become a derogatory term. Author, professor, and podcaster Brené Brown suggests that in 21st century America, an ordinary life has become synonymous with a meaningless life. We Americans have gone far astray in the past 3 decades with regard to understanding what kids need to become fulfilled and independent adults. We have undermined the authority of teachers and of parents. We have allowed kids to be guided by same-age peers rather than insisting on the primacy of guidance from adults. As a result, American kids now are growing up to be less adaptive and less resilient than they could be. But you can change that in your own home, starting today. If you live in the United States and you want your child to grow up to be happy, productive, and fulfilled, then you will have to parent your child in ways which will differ from those of many of your neighbors. Your neighbors may not understand. They may whisper to one another about how strict you are. You don't allow your 11-year-old son to play violent video games like Grand Theft Auto or Call of Duty. He must feel so isolated. Your 13-year-old daughter is one of only 2 girls in her class who doesn't have her own page on Instagram. How awful. You will be so uncool. Don't be intimidated. Lend your neighbor your copy of this book. Meanwhile, you will have to be courageous for the sake of your child, so that he or she can grow up to be brave and humble like you. Throughout the world, parents in developed countries are increasingly confused about their role. Should they be their child's best friend or their child's authoritative guide? Many parents are twisting themselves in knots, trying to be the cool peer of their child one moment and the authoritative parent the next. My advice, don't do that. Your job is to be the authoritative parent, not the cool kid. The parent-child relationship differs from the relationship between same-age peers. Understand the differences. I have found that advice to be every bit as necessary in Edinburgh and Auckland and Brisbane as it is in Dallas and New York and Seattle. But there are other challenges which are uniquely American. In this book, I have highlighted 3. 1. Culture. The culture of disrespect is mingled with the culture of live for now. When one sees the Pepsi Live for Now billboard in England or in New Zealand, it's easy to recognize the message of live for now as an American import, which anyone can freely accept or reject. But here in the United States, the culture of live for now, whatever floats your boat, you do you, is our native culture. It is the default culture which American kids encounter if we set them loose to navigate on their own, as some notables would have us do. Without authoritative guidance, it is the culture which they will adopt as their own. 2. Medication. In the United States, it has become common to medicate children with powerful psychiatric drugs as a first resort rather than a last resort. As I explained in Chapter 3, that's a big reason why American kids are now much more likely to be on medication compared with kids outside North America. We are experimenting on children in a way that has no precedent, with medications whose long-term risks are largely unknown. 3. Overscheduling. As I mentioned in Chapter 11, we Americans like to boast about how busy we are. The non-stop grind of school and activities and homework begins early in the morning and continues late into the night. In America, parents routinely brag about how busy and overscheduled they are. That's not healthy. Find a different perspective. Boast about how you and your child spent an afternoon lying on the grass, looking up at the sky, trying to find shapes in the clouds. To be a wise parent in the United States today, you must understand these challenges. Be the authoritative guide. Introduce your child to a worldview more meaningful than live for now. Resist the pressures to medicate your child, except as a last resort, rather than as the first intervention. Don't give in to the temptation to overschedule. Teach your child that relaxed time with family is more important than cramming 2 or 3 more extracurricular activities into the week. Every human relationship is characterized by responsibilities, but the responsibilities differ depending on the relationship. A physician has responsibilities to a patient, to evaluate the patient's signs and symptoms, to make a diagnosis, to determine the best treatment, and to explain the treatment, all to be done objectively and without being influenced by third parties, such as drug makers or employers or insurance companies. A friend has responsibilities to a friend, to be kind, to be trustworthy, to be available to the best of their ability in times of need. A husband has responsibilities to his wife, and a wife to her husband. Each has made a commitment to cherish the other, forsaking all others, for as long as they both shall live. Each of these relationships, between physician and patient, between friends, and between husband and wife, begins with a choice. You choose your doctor. You choose your friend. You choose your spouse. But your child didn't choose you. The parent-to-child relationship is unchosen. And while you and your partner may have chosen to have a child, you didn't choose to have this child. So the unchosenness applies in both directions, though somewhat differently for parents than for children. Earlier, I mentioned the author, Ayn Rand. Her name at birth was Elisa Rosenbaum. She didn't choose that name. It was given to her by her parents. She rejected the name her parents gave her and took another name of her own choosing. In one of her most famous books, The Virtue of Selfishness, she wrote, "No man can have a right to impose an unchosen obligation on another man." This was back in 1964, when man meant human being. But the whole premise of this book is that parents do have the right to impose obligations and expectations on their children. More than once, parents have told me of their child complaining, "I didn't ask to be born into this family." The child feels that because he or she didn't choose to be in this family, he or she shouldn't be bound by the family rules. As I mentioned earlier, Ayn Rand never had a child and never wrote seriously about parenting or the parent-child relationship. But there is no greater responsibility between human beings than the responsibility of a parent to a child. It is the parent's responsibility not only to feed and to clothe and to shelter the child, but also to transmit the parent's culture to the child, to instill a longing for virtue, and to teach the meaning of life. Why are we here? According to the parent's best understanding. Each of us as parents must clearly explain to our child that Ayn Rand's commandment that nobody can impose an unchosen obligation on another might be reasonable among adults, but it doesn't apply within the family. Our daughter didn't choose to be born into our family, but she is bound by our family rules. I didn't choose my daughter, but I am bound by the obligations of a father to a daughter. An old-fashioned word for unchosen obligation is duty. Contemporary mainstream culture scorns the idea of duty. Whatever floats your boat, if it feels good, do it. And in so doing, the culture has undermined the authority of parents to do their job. The result has been a collapse of parenting worldwide, perhaps more so in North America than elsewhere. The collapse of parenting has led, not surprisingly, to an explosion in the prevalence of anxiety and depression among children and teenagers, and to an extraordinary rise in the proportion of kids who are fragile in ways unknown in previous generations. For the sake of your child, you have to create an alternative culture in your home, a culture of respect, an affirmation of duty, of parents to their children and of children to their parents. You have to assert without apology the primacy of the parent-to-child relationship over relationships between same-age peers. You have to teach that family comes first, despite living in a culture where family ties are seldom respected. You must teach your child that every choice he or she makes has immediate, far-reaching, and unforeseen consequences. You must help your child to find meaning in their life that is not about their latest accomplishment or how they look or how many friends they have, but about who they are, their truest self. You must judge your success as a parent not by how many friends your child has, not by grade point average or test scores or athletic prowess, not by an acceptance letter from a famous college or university, but by whether your child is on the road to fulfilling his or her potential, capable of governing his or her needs and desires instead of being governed by them. Do not allow yourself to be paralyzed by your own inadequacies. You may not be a perfect model of honesty and integrity. Neither am I. There may be dark places in your own soul, things that you are ashamed of. I have them too. You may feel silly trying to preach to your child about virtue and character because you know how far astray you have gone in the past, including the recent past. I have often felt the same way. But too bad. To borrow an analogy from the classroom, raising your child to know and care about virtue and character is not a special extra credit assignment reserved for the superior parent. It is mandatory for all parents. And when you are given a mandatory assignment, you must do your best, regardless of your own shortcomings, regardless of whether your peers, other parents, are paying attention to the assignment or not. There is no greater responsibility. I wish you all the best for you and for your child, and I hope we will be in touch.
And that's the conclusion of The Collapse of Parenting by Leonard Sachs, MD, PhD, How We Hurt Our Kids When We Treat Them Like Grown-Ups. And it should read how liberal parents hurt their kids when they treat them like grown-ups. That's the way it should be. Because the whole book should be addressed to liberal parents and should make the distinction between liberal parenting and conservative parenting. Okay, so he hasn't read, apparently, the book called The Sovereign Child. And if he had, that would be the eye-opener for him. Because everything he's describing in this book in terms of bad parenting comes right out of that book. And all the consequences that he has described in this book are predictable. So again, he should have gone ahead and made the distinction between liberal parenting and conservative parenting. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you're not neutral and that the government has no rights.